JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Wednesday, February 19th, 9 a.m. Talk really quick about the markets. Some names I'm looking at go from there. S&P, the futures kind of mixed this morning, actually slightly in the red. They were higher overnight. Uh, Europe markets are taking on the chin this morning. You had UK inflation come in higher than expectations. I don't know if that means it really hasn't rolled much into US markets. Uh, but considering S&P just closed at all-time highs yesterday, I was saying it. Yeah, I'm on the watch list yesterday morning. Could probably some chop here, some consolidation. So, 2 o'clock today we get the Fed minutes. Who knows if that's going to move markets too much, unless there's an insanely hawkish spin to it. I think a lot of that's baked in already. Uh, and then Walmart earnings tomorrow. I think that's probably more important because if we see a huge slowdown in retail sales, I mean, we saw the worst retail sales number last Friday in 18, well, I think it was close to 18 months. And then if Walmart earnings kind of paint that picture as well, it's probably, I don't know. And you know what? It's like if it shows weaker than expected sales in regards to Walmart, they miss or there's weaker than expected guidance, it actually maybe it bodes well, right? Because then the Fed might be more apt to cut rates this week. Either way, we'll see what happens. But I think it's gonna be more consolidation. Yesterday was, I wouldn't call it a boring session, but we chopped around. We were in the green. Then at 2 o'clock, we had this pull all the way down to 608 and change on the SPY. No news, no headline, no catalyst really to speak of. And then we were chopping around. And then at the end of the day, the last 6 minutes of the day, we went from 609 all the way up to 611.50. And we closed right at the highs, all-time highs. So pretty remarkable stuff. And we'll see how today plays out. Lots of still a lot of earnings. I'll talk about that in a second. But 611.97 is the upper Bollinger Band on the SPY. We were 612 and changed in the pre-market overnight session. So probably some chop there. Maybe an inside day here. We don't hit the lows we hit yesterday, 608.38. Chop in between here, and then maybe we can work on. I think 615 is the next target, and then I'll revisit kind of the thought there. So also yesterday's all-time high rally was in the face of yields in the US dollar rallying. So that's always a good sign. But unfortunately, this morning, small caps were flat yesterday. And then this morning, they seem to be selling off a little more than the overall markets. Even if the SPY can chop, I would love to see finally the small caps, at least to find some footing. I mean, the IWM 227 yesterday, and back in December was at 245. So there's plenty of room for upside. So, I mean, the ideal situation would be some chop on the S&P and small caps start to outperform. All right, so now individual names here. First win yesterday. It opened green and it took a little while to get going, and then finally took off around 11 o'clock. Then all the way up to 93 about the noon hour. I used the move close some of my calls out for nearly 100%. I could have got out more or the rest at 200% when it hit 93, but I held on to it. I was also looking at some strikes into next week for a play over $100, but then it gave back some of the gains. So I figured I'll just hold the calls. If it trades into the green today and holds green, especially in the morning, I might look for those calls finally to play for that move over $100. Asian markets were mixed overnight. So I think once the Asian markets start rallying, I think that'll be next leg for win. iRobot, what a day yesterday. I was talking about the rant yesterday afternoon. It was all the way down to 903 yesterday morning at about 940. And then it embarked on a dollar reversal all the way up to 10. And then boom, all the way up to 1050. When I got the calls last week, I was talking about every single time it's broken at 925 handle. I wouldn't say every single time, but the last 5 instances, it has hit 1050 in a very rapid period of time. Sure enough, we hit 1050 yesterday. I think that 13 handle comes. I wouldn't be surprised to see more volatility today, but I was also talking about yesterday on the rant. I think the fact that they already pre-announced numbers back at the ICR conference started January, and then earnings aren't until March. There's not much in a way that could really kill the momentum, right? Sometimes earnings is a momentum killer because it takes out speculation. People could speculate right now that, hey, wow, maybe iRobot's going to do some kind of crazy guidance. There'll be some news or another insider buy or whatever it is. But earnings removes that speculation. So it kind of takes the possibility of those things happening. And then, stock usually, it's like a sell the news event. So we'll see what happens with iRobot. I was looking for some more strikes, but I'll probably just continue to hold my marches. I think it trades up near 13 in the coming days. So that's iRobot. Teladoc, disappointing session yesterday, down over 8%, but again, no news, no catalyst. But to put it in context or perspective, it didn't even break Thursday's lows. So it didn't break lows not seen since 2 sessions ago. I mean, of course, I would love to see it at 15 again, but it's similar. It's up so much so quick since the start of February. It was under $10 starting in February. So to see some chop here, some profit taking, I think that probably bodes well for more highs. So uh, the good thing, I guess, the silver lining is those April strikes, the April 20s have come down in price. So don't be surprised if I add some strikes there. TripAdvisor reports earnings tomorrow. I'll be locking some in at some point. So it's either going to be today or tomorrow. I was actually possibly maybe the March 18th, but we'll see. I just want to take some risk off into the report and then revisit after earnings. But still think they're going to post a great quarter. Expedia got another upgrade this morning. They had great earnings recently. So I think that the whole travel sector as a whole is doing very well. So that's Trip. Lemonade, monster day yesterday for Lemonade. Broke into the 40. I think it was 40, over 41. I thought, boom, this off to the races, and then it just gave it back. 11 o'clock was the highs, and then by 2 o'clock was back at $38. Disappointing. I mean, it's still up 6% for the day, so that's a good thing. Just unfortunate, my calls are back in the green, then they're back in the red. I was actually looking for the 50 strikes into next week. Those are up 100%, so I passed. If it holds green and trades over 40, I'll look for those 50 or 55 strikes played for premium build for earnings next week. That brings me to Solar Edge. And yesterday afternoon, just at this time, I was talking about Solar Edge. I'm like, it's either under 10 or it's over 20. I had calls back in January. It's a huge short interest, 41% short interest. Stock has come substantially. I mean, was it down 80% year to date, or year over year? Used to be a 300 plus stock. But then they cut costs. Then you had Goldman Spectacular did the double upgrade, and it was trading 15. I made some money in the calls, went all the way back down. And then sure enough, what does it do today? Great, decent report. It was a mixed report, missed on EPS, beat on revenues. Then they guided revenues slightly, the bracket more on the high end, I guess. But it's more of a turnaround story, right? So it's not even about, hey, is declining business, or is the business going to be set on a turnaround? It looks like the latter is the case. I was hoping to be able to get some strikes at the open, but it's 22.50 right now. I thought maybe 25. Those 25 is going to be very expensive on a risk reward basis. Not only expensive, but hey, there could be some reversals. So I'll probably sit on my hands in lieu of trying and time this. But what a monster! Kind of kicking myself for missing it, but could have went the other way either, right? If I had 100% conviction on it, I would have got the calls. I didn't. And not only that, when it has such a high short interest, it could have posted a mixed result, and they could have pressured the stock. So that's Solar Edge. Redfin flat day yesterday. Still looking for some March strikes. So not much here to talk about. Also, happy Nikola bankruptcy day, right? Nikola reported, not reported, but they finally filed bankruptcy. Stock is down 50%. I mean, it was already out there. I don't know how you hold the stock before the bankruptcy filing. But just another one of those names. I have not been short or negative a lot of names over the last decade, right? And a couple of those names, one was Nikola, another one was Elfin, Longfin. If you don't remember, they had Zidu Coin. The guy was on CNBC, the CEO was on CNBC lying to everybody, and then he got convicted of fraud, or I don't know what happened to him. That was a great story. One other name reports after the close today, that'd be ENVX. Maybe I'm wrong on this one. I started my little rants back in the summer. It's just one of those names I started doing research on, and things just didn't like jive. But maybe I got it wrong. But they have earnings after close. I call it earnings, but they don't really have earnings because the company doesn't sell batteries yet, right? They acquired a company that does. I don't want to go on a rant on that one, but one of these days, especially if I see some red flags today after the earnings, I might look to get some puts on that one again. But that one's been kind of like a lost cause, but it's almost like, a lot of these names over the years have been cult stocks, right? So I remember when I posted about EMVX, or I got just barraged by people, call me names, threaten me, private messages. So, and then I had to block people. I rarely block people on Twitter because I think it's important, or X, or some of these FinTwit sites, because it's important to have discourse, right? I am not naive enough to think that I know everything, right? So it's important to have both sides of a story, because if you just listen to your side and your echo chamber, it's probably not the best course of action, especially when you're looking at a stock. So rants for other days. Is it pre-market tomorrow on TripAdvisor? Why did I think it was after hours? Well, if it's pre-market, I'll be taking it off today. So that definitely changes things. Anyway, let's have a great day, folks. I'll be back on later. Rock and roll.